is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, and who errs and comes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and if he fails, at the worst, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. Teddy Roosevelt said this in a speech to Sorbonne University students in Paris, France, April 23, 1910. And it was geared toward the intellectual and wealthy elites who valued cynicism and looked down on people that did strive greatly, and tended to just sit back and sneer at those who tried and failed rather than actually attempting anything great. It was almost as though, according to Roosevelt, that virtue and lofty pursuits were beneath them, like that outgrown them. So this was a sort of rebuke. But ultimately, anybody can be a critic. Anybody can be a critic. That's easy. It's more important to be the one who spends himself in a valiant effort, even if you fail. That's his point. And Roosevelt embodied this. He was born frail and weak. He had heart problems, and doctors told him to avoid physical activity and to even seek out a desk job when he was older. And instead, Roosevelt took up boxing and a number of other physical activities. In fact, he became a good horseman and went out to be a rancher for 2 years, pretty much by himself, in the Dakota Territories, which was very wild at that point still. He even formed a cavalry group called the Rough Riders in the Spanish-American War, and is notorious for charging up San Juan Hill and earning posthumously, much later, a Medal of Honor. And of course, he became one of the most influential presidents in U.S. history. And all this from a man who doctors said from his youth should avoid physical activity and get a desk job. So although this was a kind of rebuke to the upper class and wealthy elites, I think that we can look at it as an encouragement to, despite naysayers, despite the odds of failure, despite fear, to just dare greatly. That's what I get from his quote. And I like to do what's called the rocking chair test. And it's where you picture yourself when you're 80 years old, sitting in your rocking chair on your porch, and you think back on your life. At that point, what would you look back on and regret not doing? I think that's what Teddy Roosevelt's talking about. What is it that you, the worthy cause in you, that you know you want to pursue, but maybe you're afraid, or maybe there are people telling you that you can't do it, or maybe the odds of failure are very great. That's what he's saying to go and do. For me, when I do the rocking chair test, I have my whole life, I've wanted to be a Special Forces soldier. I've wanted to see if I had what it takes, and I want to fight America's enemies and do what good I can in a Special Forces capacity. I've always wanted to, but I've never thought that I could. And right now I'm training for a Special Forces tryout in June. And something like 80% of guys don't make it, just past the first phase. And even more don't make it the whole way. And even if I do make it past the first phase, I've got 2 years of a tough road ahead of me, but I don't care. I might fail. It's even quite likely that I'll fail. The odds are stacked against me, but I know that I have to try. So that's my rocking chair test. What's yours? Do you want to be a nurse? Do you want to get your doctorate? Maybe you feel called to the mission field, but you're concerned about money or whatever. There's always going to be obstacles. There's always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be a chance of failure. The point is, you get one shot at this life. Make the most use of it. Dare greatly and dare to fail, and you will at least not regret that, but you will regret not trying at all. And cut.